Greetings and salutations. I'm Madison, and welcome to another episode of In the Wardrobe, a series in which we learn about and analyze the fashion of a specific film, designer, or individual. Today, we will be looking into the wardrobe of a musical adaptation of the Cinderella story. Cinderella is one of the most retold stories. There have been thousands of different versions, some dating all the way back to ancient Greece. There have been so many versions, I could probably do a whole series just on the various adaptations created by different cultures and traditions throughout the ages. However, today we are focusing on the film The Slipper and the Rose. Released in 1976, The Slipper and the Rose follows the same basic premise that other Cinderella films have. However, it does have a few twists of originality that make the film both refreshing and charming. To analyze the costumes, we will obviously be touching on certain plot points, so please be aware that there will be some spoilers throughout this video. Before we take a look at the clothes, let's get introduced to the designer. The costumes for The Slipper and the Rose were designed by Julie Harris, an English costume designer who began her career at Gainsborough Pictures in 1947. While active throughout the 40s and 50s, she was able to work on some of her bigger projects in the 60s and 70s. She designed for the films Casino Royale, Live and Let Die, Swiss Family Robinson, and most notably, two Beatle films, A Hard Day's Night and Help. The Slipper and the Rose was one of her largest projects and one of the most extravagant examples of her talent as a designer. Over 300 costumes were created, blending beautifully with the setting of the Austrian countryside and castle. Throughout the film, Harris subtly uses color to denote the mood and feelings of the characters. I particularly enjoyed seeing Harris's decision to design colorful and opulent clothes for both the ladies and the men of the court, which was both bold and historically accurate. The costumes mostly draw inspiration from the mid to late 1700s. Obviously, they are costumes, so they are not going to be made exactly like how garments were made in the 1700s. However, I appreciate the effort and attention to detail that was obviously made when designing costumes for this film. Only a few details and hairstyles betray the fact that this was indeed made in 1976. For instance, as a servant, Cinderella would most likely have her hair covered with a cap, rather than have this more contemporary bouffant of a hairstyle that she has throughout the film. This is just a minor detail that was probably done to increase her relatability and attractiveness to the audience and give her a soft and sweet appearance. Now that we have been introduced to the designer, let's take a look at her work, starting with the character of Cinderella. Gemma Craven plays the lead role of Cinderella. Cast as an unknown, this film was her big break and the first rather large production she was ever a part of. We first catch a glimpse of Gemma as Cinderella when she is returning from her father's funeral. Her somber, hopeless mood is reflected by the dark velvet cloak and dingy purple-gray dress that has only the slightest touch of frills at the collar and sleeves. Throughout the first act, her color palette remains dingy and gray until she is transformed and ready to go to the royal ball. One of my favorite moments in film is transformations or beauty montages. There is something deeply satisfying about watching a plain or neglected subject metamorphosize into something beautiful. In this film, the metamorphosis of Cinderella and her subsequent regression back to her old self is a delightful experience of both costuming and cinematography. In a swirl of sparkles, song, and dance, Cinderella is prepared for the ball by her fairy godmother. Her dress is a fabulous pink robe à l'anglaise, which glows and shines beneath the moonlight and candles. Her gown is paired with a pink cloak, a blonde wig adorned with jewels and rosebuds, and the essential sparkling glass slippers. After making a big impression at the ball and dancing with the prince, Cinderella realizes the lateness of the hour, and she hurriedly dashes away. The lighting changes from warm to a cold blue as she runs down a labyrinth of stairs. With each passing chime of the clock, her hair begins to soften and return to its natural brown shade, and the dress fades from pink to her gray servant's gown. All of this happens in a dramatic couple of seconds, but considering how much careful planning and editing had to be done, it has become one of my favorite transformation scenes to watch. The next morning after the party, Cinderella is wearing a chintz dress, a colorful floral dress symbolizing that she is starting to feel hopeful and is still feeling blissful from the night before. The use of chintz was another historically accurate decision made by Harris. Chintz originated in India, and for a long time it could only be made in India. When it was shipped to Europe, its rarity, vibrancy, and durability made chintz extremely desirable with the upper and middle classes of the 1700s. Although handsomely provided by the king, Cinderella is next seen in exile, sitting on a swing framed by a lattice full of climbing flowers. When I saw this scene, I immediately thought of the painting The Swing by Jean-Henri Fragonard. Fragonard was a famous French artist who was praised for his use of color and detail. Although the subject matter is different in the painting than in the film, the setting and Cinderella's attire are almost identical to those in Fragonard's painting, right down to the style and color of her dress and bonnet. As we approach the final act of the film, we have not one, but two wedding dresses to look at. They're actually quite interesting in terms of design, because they completely depart from the mid-1700s silhouette and design that Harris was so faithful to throughout the duration of the film. Cinderella's dress is more 1830s or 1840s in style. The reason really is unclear. Perhaps Harris could not find any references as to what was worn at weddings in the mid-1700s, or perhaps she wanted something more relatable that fit with the modern audience's concept of a wedding gown. Either way, Cinderella's gown is beautiful. However, I actually prefer the wedding dress and headpiece of the princess the prince was supposed to marry. This gown is so unique and so striking, from the intricate high-collared ivory gown to the most spectacular sparkling gold rhinestone and pearl headpiece. The unique shape of the headpiece and the heavy embellishment of pearls were specifically elements of Russian royal attire. Moving on to some menswear, which I find just as enjoyable and fascinating as women's wear. The prince is played by an American actor named Richard Chamberlain. The prince's costumes are more neutral colored throughout most of the film, perhaps to denote his disdain for the frivolousness of royalty and his own personal desire to be treated as a normal person. His first suit is brown with a pink and gold waistcoat and black boots. While it is beautiful, it looks so simple, almost plain, next to his parents' costumes and the attire of the court. As the prince becomes increasingly agitated and endeavors to abandon the royal pomp of the court, you see his clothing become simpler and simpler. His second suit consists of a rust-colored coat and light brown breeches, reminiscent of traditional horse-riding attire. For the wife-finding ball, obviously, the prince returns to his more royal regalia in a striking velvet green suit encrusted with sparkling rhinestones. The choice of this green color was surprising to me. However, after watching the scene several times and reconsidering, I realized that in the wash of color with all these different costumes in a ballroom, that green color helps him stand out, and the shade is more in keeping with his tendency to wear earth tones. The next suit is one of my favorites. It's a full, rich burgundy red suit with gold accents, a black neckerchief, and boots. Quite honestly, I would wear this myself if I could because it is just absolutely perfect. I would not change a thing. The prince's final outfit is at his wedding. He is wearing all ivory with a light blue sash underneath a sparkling icy blue overcoat, which was topped by a dark blue velvet cloak. This is a beautiful ensemble. However, there is one thing that I personally found to be odd: the cloak. First off, the cloak is very thin and flat, with just a straight up and down silhouette. Secondly, it has this hefty rope-like tie for the closure with these comical tassels at the bottom that are really too heavy in comparison with the thinness of the rest of the garment. This is the only costume piece that looks a bit on the cheap side, like it was made out of curtain material. When looking at cloaks worn by royals and noblemen of the 1700s, you will see a lot of fabric, a great deal of draping, and most of the time there was some sort of fur detailing in addition to ribbons. Despite the cloak, this last suit is one of my favorites and is a perfect demonstration of 1700s elegance. The fairy godmother is portrayed by actress Annette Crosby, and oh my goodness, did she do such a great job with this role. Out of all of the interpretations of this character, I think that it was not only well acted, but also well written. Traditionally, the part of the fairy godmother is a character with little to no backstory who appears for about 5 seconds to help Cinderella get ready for the ball before vanishing into the night. Maybe, just maybe, she will reappear at the end of the film with a cliché or sappy speech. In this interpretation, you see her throughout the duration of the film. She builds a relationship with Cinderella, and she's a charming character with a dry sense of humor and wit that makes you instantly endeared to her. We first see the fairy godmother in a purple dress with lace trim. Her outfit is a mix of working class styles and upper class styles. The silhouette of the dress is more working class, but the lace touches denote a bit more status and the styles of the well-to-do classes. Next, we see the fairy godmother at home in a fanciful gown that mixes several historic silhouettes and sleeve designs. Because she is a more whimsical character, it seems more fitting for her to have a mixture of different styles from different decades. When the fairy godmother returns to prepare Cinderella for the ball, she returns in a dress quite similar to the one we saw at the beginning of the film. However, it is decidedly different. The color is a brighter purple to again denote a switch in mood to a lighter, more cheery atmosphere. The last dress is the most fanciful and most fairy godmother-esque of all of her costumes. The color of this gown varies from shot to shot. In natural light outside, it comes across as a silver color with a hint of blue, while inside with artificial light, the dress comes across more of a purple color with silver accents. Certain elements of this dress have inspiration from the 1500s, specifically that Elizabethan-esque standing collar, the flat stays in the bodice that come to a point at the bottom, and to a certain degree the skirt shape all denote styles from the 1500s. However, the sleeves are firmly set in the styles of the mid-1700s. This dress is one of the most beautiful outfits in the movie. It sparkles and shimmers with every step, and it captures the magical quality of this character. Because the main characters are the focus of a film, their costumes tend to carry the weight of the story and, just in general, the focus of the audience. Often supporting characters can fade into the background of attention by both the audience and the costume designer. However, in this film, most of the supporting actors had fun and beautiful costumes to wear. Both the prince's family and Cinderella's stepmother and sisters are fabulously over the top. The king wears a great deal of ivory, gold, sage greens, and pinks. The queen wears these huge dresses trimmed with lace, ruffles, and sometimes mink fur. Flipping over to Cinderella's family, Cinderella's stepmother and stepsisters are often a shocking contrast to Cinderella. When you see them coming back from the funeral, they are wearing brightly colored dresses under their dark cloaks. The stepmother's dress is reminiscent of a black widow, with its bright red color and black detailing. The dress is a key part in the introduction of the mentality of the character without having to overstate the obvious. It gives off this sense of venom, of danger, of someone whose sincerity, like her beauty, is only skin deep. I did not care for any of the evil stepsisters' gowns. However, I did like several of the evil stepmother's gowns. Specifically, I really liked this beautiful, deep, rich, wine-colored gown. My sole criticism of this film is the overwhelming number of songs. There are 15 songs in total, crammed into a 2-hour duration. Don't get me wrong, I love a good musical number, but one every 10 minutes started to feel a little obnoxious in my personal opinion and began to slow down the plot. Overall, this is a charming, cozy film with so many beautiful things to look at as well as songs to enjoy. I hope that you enjoyed this episode of In the Wardrobe. If you did, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. If you want to support me and my work, you can give a donation through my Ko-fi page, which is linked in the description box below. Thank you so much for watching.